I've been traveling around India for 2 weeks by myself. Overall, I have felt safe. There were a couple of incidences. I want to let you know how I planned out my trip, how I navigated throughout, and the moments when things could have taken a turn and the things that I did. So I watched so many of these YouTube videos, like the one that you're watching right now, with solo female travelers in India, because when I mentioned casually to people in New York, hey, yeah, I'm going to India. People would be like, oh my gosh, you are by yourself? Oh, don't do it. And things like that. And I was like, I'm going to do it. My friend's getting married. I'm definitely going to celebrate her wedding, but I want to be smart about it. So I booked a combination of five-star hotels and homestays. So you could be thinking, wait, the homestays, that could be a little crunchy. Like, what's up with that? But how I made sure that my homestays were okay was I ended up booking them private rooms, filter through private rooms on Couchsurfing. I looked at the people that I stayed with had a verified profile and many five-star reviews. Not just like one or two partially verified. No, both of those criteria needed to be met. And then there was one that I still felt iffy about because they were saying, oh no, you can't really get here by Uber. And that's a little bit of a red flag. I'm not trying to go out into the middle of nowhere by my lonesome. And then I ended up sharing the address with my friend's husband, and he said, oh no, that's a temple, don't do it. And then I was kind of curious. So I did end up canceling that and booking a hotel instead. But I asked people, hey, like, why wouldn't you want to stay at a temple? And I got a range of answers. So they're not really monitored. Anyone and everyone can be at a temple. Mind you, this potential homestay would have been at a private house within a temple. But I got even more insight with a recent tour guide that I had. We were at this famous cemetery in Jaipur, and he was like, oh, don't go up those steps. That's a temple. And I'm like, okay, wait, why are temples so scary? What's up with this? And he said, well, the people that are on the outskirts of society that maybe are not mentally there, that have nothing to lose, they'll go to a temple and wreak havoc. It's almost like, how in America people are afraid of hostels sometimes, which I think, okay, hostels, whatever. I've had my fair share of hostel experiences that were not hostile, right? But when it comes to staying at one of these places, think about it. I guess they're not really locked. Well, it's a very communal setting, but there's no oversight. I'm glad that I didn't chance it because I even thought back to being on the Camino, and you stay at what are called albergues. And there was this one that was a donativo, so a donation bell based sort of all ages hostel situation in Spain. And it's not like I felt unsafe in that situation, but yeah, nothing was locked. It was super uncomfortable. You're sleeping on the floor on a very thin mat. And it's like, being in India, where comparatively things are a lot more cost effective here, I can spend a similar budget that I would if I was vacationing in Europe and live a lot more comfortably. Why not? So I went that route. But I am really grateful for the homestays that I stayed in because I learned so much. And I met some really cool people, one who was a fellow author, and he gave me a copy of his book that I read, and then another who does humanitarian work with children's mental health in Rajasthan, Jaipur and Udaipur in those areas. And the millennials are having babies and creating companies help little girls especially self-express. I'm like, ooh, yes, this is a very millennial and Gen Z agenda. Let's go. I experienced a lot of kindness. So I will go into a couple of sketchy situations in a moment, but I want to let you know about the kindness that I experienced. So there was one tour in Udaipur where the tour guide kind of inspired me getting nervous because my ATM card, when I first used it, I was able to withdraw cash. I only withdrew 3,000 rupees, which is roughly 30 US dollars. And I thought, oh, if I need more, which I probably will, then I will go ahead and get more. Not realizing that my ATM card, the pin would just stop working. And I called my bank and they said, oh, we can mail you a new one in 5 business days. It's like, that's not going to work for a trip that's a couple weeks and some change. So, goodness, I was wondering what to do. And my tour guide was telling me, oh, like you have 800 rupees left is not enough. We might not be able to do all of the tour. And I was like, hey, like, can we please make something work? Can you get wise? Can we do something? Or can I buy something and, have maybe they give me extra change back and I pay extra or something like that. So I was all kind of stressed out thinking, oh, great, now I'm here and I can't do anything. Guess what? In Udaipur was completely fine. I ended up only needing to spend 200 rupees. The other places actually accepted cards. So, like, I think that he wanted me to have a lot of cash on hand because He works with these places and they prefer cash. We all know when people prefer cash, maybe it's because they don't want to put it on their taxes. They want it to be under the radar, whatever. That's not something that I felt like I needed to personally contribute to, considering that I was having a hard time getting more cash. So, everyone got their payment mostly electronically. And then when I was in Jaipur, I expressed, gosh, I booked a tour and then the title indicated there was a guide, and then all of a sudden I was not connected with the guide. I was connected with the driver. So it was 7 hours before the door, and I asked, "Hey, just clarifying, I want to be sure that I have a guide because I'm traveling by myself. I don't feel comfortable just being dropped off at these different monuments for hours at a time." And maybe I could have done it. I definitely saw at least one or two female travelers that were by themselves throughout my experiences, but I personally didn't want that experience. And even though I know I could probably have handled it pretty good at being assertive if I need to be, but I just wanted to be able to exhale a little bit. All of these public places I have had a guide with me. And if you do an all-day tour, typically they can come with a guide. Anyway, going back to this story, he actually said, "Oh, the thing that you booked didn't have a guide." And I said, "We can even cancel this. Like, I would rather cancel it than not have a guide." And he said, "No, we'll keep it." And then he said, "I'll make sure that you have cash and we'll work it out later. I know a way where you can pay a merchant that we know extra and then you'll get cash back and that sort of thing," which I thought could have been possible earlier, but no one else had the connections that this person has. And then when I got into the tuk-tuk, where it's pretty customary, you meet your driver and then they drive you to your tour guide. And then they join you in the car or in the vehicle. And he just hands me 5,000 rupees and just such trust and like, "Oh yeah, use as much of this as you need, use all of it. And we trust that you'll pay us back." And there was no rush. It was just like handing me this wad of cash. And I felt so touched by it because just there's a level of heart-centeredness that I've experienced. The people, not everyone in Jaipur, to be honest, my hotel staff, no, not really at all. But these tour guides, I feel we're clicking, we're connecting, and it's led to some cool experiences. And I will let you know that again, I was able to use my card at probably half the places. So I ended up needing to use about 500 of those rupees. I'm getting ready to go on an expedition, and I'll tell you how that's going to happen. I felt like I clicked with my driver and I clicked with my guide. We're talking about running. We both were fairly, competitive runners. He's probably more competitive than me. He ran 100 marathons, okay? And then there came a point where I was having dinner with my driver and he asked me, oh, and I will say, this was very nice because another tour guide that I had in Mumbai, he was not as engaged, okay? So when it was time to eat meals, he was like, "Oh, great, this is a good place. Bye." And then he would leave for a little too long, honestly. So I'm just like by myself waiting in this restaurant for him to come back. But I was so grateful that this tour guide stuck with me. And I think he was also celebrating Ramadan, so he couldn't even eat or drink. But I know that drill, from others in my life who have been experiencing that tradition and that custom. But anyway, he ends up mentioning to me, "Hey, do you have an interest in astrology, in readings, this and that?" And he mentions this guy who apparently was on the BBC as a fortune teller, intuitive medium. And he asked, "Do you want a reading by him? I can call him up right now," all very informal. And I was like, "Ooh, I'm getting up early for my safari." Spoiler alert, I don't recommend the safari. I'll tell you why later. But anyway, I'm like, "Yeah, let's call him. Let's see. Maybe after dinner, I mean, if the timing works out." And it just so happened when he called him, he picked up and he happened to be in town. This guy's a world traveler, so you never even know if he's going to be in Jaipur. And he was available within 20 minutes. And it's like, "Oh, great. I'm finishing up my dinner and then we'll leave." And the timing is right. And then when I walked in, it was right next to a temple on temple grounds. And you walk up these steps and you go into this room. It's a little dimly lit and there's jewels everywhere. And there are three guys just standing there. And it honestly felt kind of scary. I was like, "Hi, hi, everyone." And then they were trying to show me jewels. And I was just, kind of in my own energy. And he's like, "Oh, you don't like jewels?" I'm like, "I'm a bit more minimalist." And then he noticed my earrings. And yeah, I didn't even look at the jewels. And then they took me to another back room. It was a small room. This guy was in it, and he didn't look like a guru. He looked pretty, I don't know. He wasn't like cross-legged or wearing any jewels or anything. Normal looking guy. And then the whole thing slightly out of my comfort zone, but whatever. Then I look at my driver. I'm like, I trust you. This is another reason why I would say if you're nervous, but you want to kind of do these off the beaten path things, here's something that you can do. Don't leave a review on these tour websites until you're home. They will oftentimes say, write a review right now, especially the bad ones. They'll be like, write a 5-star review right now. And do not give in to peer pressure, people. If they're telling you write it right now, because some people forget, but hopefully you don't forget and you want to support these tours that are doing good things. How I did it was if it was a good or great tour, I gave 5 stars, name dropped in the reviews. And then the two that I didn't care for, I just did not write a review. And I felt good about that. I wasn't about to be peer pressured into writing a 5-star review for something where I was like, that wasn't a great experience. But anyway, so then I'm in this little room and he immediately tells me something like, oh, this is a particular wound that you need to heal. I'm like, oh, okay. And then he's telling me the age of my mother, the birth order I am in the family, and just different things that were specific. They're not on social media, some of these emotional things within my particular family unit. Like, even though there are some things that are online, these things were not. It was interesting because I'm personally a little hesitant with fortune tellers. I don't want to know, like, tell me the future. And then 'cause I told him in the very beginning, I'm very keen on both activating and being in my highest timeline at all times. So I know that there are multiple timelines, and there are some intuitives that can tap into a timeline that's not the highest. I'm not interested in that. I want to know the best expression of my soul possible. Like, tell me about that. But don't just tell me this is going to happen. Maybe go ahead and tell me, like, oh, this is like maybe there's a turning point where I can just have this awareness of, oh, shoot, this is when I make that decision that activates the higher timeline. Because, yeah, I think life is fun when you are surprised. But he did say 2026 is objectively a good year. I'll take it. I believe that. And then, yeah, I also kind of asked him, please, if there's something like negative that you're seeing, don't need to know about that. Because I do believe that we can sidestep or bypass some of these negative things that seem fated. And negative, let's even talk about negative. What is negative? We don't know the full story or the end game. So maybe something negative leads to something positive. But anyway, I had one experience with a teller in the past who said something pretty damning that there was like no going back from it. It's like, oh no, you either do this or this isn't going to happen for you. I'm like, well, and then I tried that thing, but I didn't like it, so I didn't continue it. And it's like sometimes deprogramming the bullshit with that. But anyway, then he encouraged me, so we did about 10 minutes, and then I guess he doesn't accept payment, but you buy a piece of jewelry, don't know how much it is, and then all the proceeds go to this nonprofit to help orphaned girls, which is amazing. So, yeah, what are the chances that I would just, end up in that place? But today, actually, a little later, I'm going to have the full session and we'll see how that goes. And when it comes to situations that are less than safe, this was wild to me. So, when I was at a 5-star hotel in Udaipur, which I loved, by the way, so beautiful and comfortable in so many ways. However, there was one night, I want to say 1 in the morning, where it seemed like someone was kind of being annoying, and my doorbell was being rung on the door. And I'm in the middle of sleeping. I didn't call room service. There was no reason for this, so I ignored it. And then I don't know if an hour goes by, 30 minutes, then I hear irate yelling, banging on the door, and like really messing with the door handle in a way where I'm asking myself, how much do I trust this door? Can this person break it down? And also, the first thought that came in my head, I wish I knew the local 911. Okay, so the local 911 is either 100 or 112, by the way, but you should absolutely know your version of the local 911 always, because you know what I was left doing? Calling the operator of the hotel at the front desk. And I just said, someone's trying to break in my room. Please send help immediately. And then they hung up. And then this person, meanwhile, they didn't just like bang or knock once. they are like actively trying to break the door down. So then I called back again. I said, "Hi, I just called about someone trying to break in. They're still doing it. I'm nervous. Can you stay on the line with me?" They didn't understand. They hung up on me again. I just, I don't know. For my own self, I just wanted to be sure that someone was actually coming, that they knew the severity of the situation. I did have a sense of trust, though, that, okay, someone's going to come up and make this stop. I did have that sense of trust. And then I don't know how many minutes went by, but then you hear someone talking to them, and then it quiets down, and then my doorbell rings, and I still don't go to it. I don't have the energy. And then I just like will myself to go to sleep. And then in the morning, I asked, "Hi, what was that? Can you explain like who that person was and why they were breaking in?" And then they explained, "Oh, it was a guest who thought a party was in your room." And I could tell that the front desk, they kind of got my room number confused with the party room because they kept saying, "Oh, your room was 622." And I'm like, "It was no, my room was 322." And, kind of weirdness. There was a big company retreat happening that was Desi Pop themed and it looks really cool. And they said, "Oh, we told his boss, we told his colleagues and he's been reprimanded." And I'm like, "Okay." And now I kind of took to ChatGPT. I realized that they should have comped me for that night, but they didn't. So I emailed them and we'll see. Because yeah, it's obviously it's a big, it really rattles you. Here's the thing, in a five-star hotel, the quality of the door was so strong where if I was at like a three-star establishment, for example, the quality of the door and the lock, maybe he would have gotten in. And here's the thing, some people are like, "Oh, it was just a drunk party goer." If there's a drunk party goer that is drunk enough to think it's okay to knock the door down to get to a party, what about a woman by herself in a bed? Hello, is that still safe? Maybe not. So yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, and I wouldn't want to deter you if you're a solo female traveler, like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't even stay at a five-star." It's like the one takeaway that I would want you to have is know the local 911. Because, I mean, I don't know how the 911 in India actually works. Maybe they would hang up on me too and be like, "Someone's coming." But I like when there's chaos happening to be able to stay on the line with someone. And ideally, the line is recorded for those, sorts of reasons. And also, I wanted to mention what I'm wearing. So I'm wearing a kurta set. So it's a two-piece, it's kind of like a tunic. And I want to let you know, because sometimes people want to go shopping, but I did something that maybe you could do too if you feel comfortable. Find an Indian clothing website based in India online. And what I did was I ordered a set and their measurements. You want to measure yourself because there is not stretch in this fabric, okay? My head, whenever I'm getting into this thing, it's like I'm all smushed up and I'm like, "Whew, I'm in." So anyway, yeah, I really liked this. The look of it online had good reviews. And then I had it delivered to the first place that I was staying, or you could do that. But actually, I had my friend's sister-in-law, she picked it up. She had it at her address, which was really nice. That can be the alternative if, some people want the experience of trying on all the different clothes in India. I personally just didn't really need that experience. I wanted the convenience and to just have my outfit and all of that. But anyway, I have been treated so differently when I'm wearing this versus when I'm wearing my baggy t-shirt. I'll link below my other videos, one on 10 lessons I've learned in India in 10 days, and another on must-have, must-pack travel items. So when wearing a lip color apparently is not very common in India. Even wearing a little eye makeup, not super common. But for the sake of photos and also getting a lot of use out of this outfit, so it's this tunic that has a split on the sides. Let's see, I'm not wearing the bottom half right now. Huh? See, it goes out like that. And then the pants are high-waisted and they're like balloon pants. And there's really no stretch. There is a little piece of elastic at the waist, thank goodness, so you can pull it up because there's no zip or anything. And it's gotten way more comfortable. I've worn it probably 5 times now. The first time I was like, "Ooh, this does not have the stretch that I'm used to." But yeah, now it's a lot better. And I definitely get approached a lot more when I'm dressed up versus when I'm wearing the baggy t-shirt. And another thing that I like about having the guide is that they're more likely to ask the guide instead of me for a photo. And people have different opinions. I know some people, the people-pleasing tendency of like, "Oh, yeah, sure, it would mean so much to take a photo. Yes, take it." No, I have not consented to having my photo taken with people, but I could definitely tell sometimes there are pictures that are taken, whether you consent or not. So if I'm with a guide, they'll typically ask the guide for a photo and then he just says no. There have been times when I've directly been asked and I just say, oh, no, thank you. And, I keep it moving because the moment that you stall, that's when there could be a line that forms. That's when people think, oh, now's my chance. So you just need to be in motion and it's going to be easier for you to avert that. Or don't dress nicely and like way fewer people will come up to you. If you want to be invisible here as a solo female traveler, you can be. It probably helps to have darker, shorter hair as well. Like right now, my hair is this length, so like medium. And yeah, if you have it up, then I think what they really like is, of course, the lighter skin and then like blonde, long hair. There was one time when there was a woman that wanted a photo with me. And she asked me directly, not my guide. And I said, no, thank you. And then she actually grabbed me and I escaped her grasp. And I was like, oh, that was a little pushy. There was a place where I got tea that I actually saw in another YouTube video. So thank you, whoever you were, that recommended this tea house that has 45 varieties of tea. And it's called Tajun House. I'll link it below. But it was just such a stunning ambiance and it was very influencer friendly. And then one of the most aesthetic cemeteries that I've ever been to, a Royal Cemetery. And it's so stunning. And it's actually surrounded by temples. The monkeys are huge. They've got to be like this big, honestly. And I think because in Bali, Indonesia, when I first went to the monkey forest, they were like this big. And one, they would hop up on your shoulder. But these, I'm like, oh my God, a little too big for my comfort. And you want to be aware, it's very common when you're new to be gifted a garland. And when I was in Udaipur, my tour guide gave me a rose one. Mumbai didn't get any. And then in Jaipur, he asked which one I wanted. And the rose one, there were fewer roses, so they all kind of collected at the bottom, were heavy, didn't love it. So I chose the yellow one. Yeah, I was wearing that all day, but then my tour guide, because we were seeing monkeys, he's like, be careful, they like to eat those. I was like, that's my cue to take this off now. Because yeah, it was a little less fresh anyway. And I try to compost them when I can. I'll hold on to them until I'm in a garden where I can put them in there and kind of trust that they'll decompose in the way they're meant to. Let me see what else I have to share with you. Yeah, I also had kind of a weird thing at my hotel in Jaipur where the only people who are employed at my hotel in Jaipur are all male. And I do have my doorbell being rung at random times where they're asking if I need anything. So I find that odd because typically if I call and I want something, then they come up and provide the thing. But to be at my door asking if I need things when I could be in the middle of just having private time with myself, I don't love that. When they were ringing the doorbell without context or saying anything, I would ignore it. And then when they would say, like, can I help you talking through the door? I would say, no, thank you. Please only come to my door when I ask. And I know some people are like, oh, that's harsh. But with the language barrier, I do think you need to be especially clear with fewer words so people know. And I personally, especially when I'm solo, I like to be able to relax, but there is a part of me that has my guard up a little bit. So being more succinct and being direct while being gracious and saying, oh, thank you, please, use your manners. But it's important to not convolute something that you either want to express that you want or do not want. Another thing that I'm looking forward to trying is an Ayurvedic massage in Jaipur that I should be getting later today. And apparently, it's not like the really intense muscle soothing massages that I'm more used to. But this is supposed to be more of a light touch, a little bit more, I don't know if it's lymphatic drainage, a little more relaxing. And especially in Jaipur, they have many different schools and where people are learning this technique. So they should be pretty good. So I am looking forward to that. And I kind of wanted to walk you through the four cities that I've been in as well. And I want to let you know two of the more city-like and then two of the more rural, relaxing. So of the four, Mumbai is definitely the most established city-like. There are even no honking zones because honking is so prevalent. Because they realize that for tourists, it's a lot for some of us to handle. People customarily get their custom suits in Mumbai, and they have a lot of chains. Like there's definitely your Starbucks. There's, I think, Five Guys Burgers. I was like, really? Like these American chains are here in Mumbai. And then the next most city-like would be Jaipur. In both Jaipur and Mumbai, the customer service at the hotel was meh. It was okay, but you could tell it's like get in, get out, we're busy here. And but Jaipur does have a rich spiritual cultural scene that I did not become aware of in Mumbai. Mumbai seemed a bit more materialistic, lots of shopping. Getting to know more about Jaipur with the beautiful sights. Those are the two more city-like. And then the more rural open would be Udaipur. So Udaipur is almost more of like a village vibe. It did seem a bit cleaner and very hospitality focused. There's not too much going on there, but there are world-class hotels and it's just really beautiful. I think the skylines, the mountains, it's a stunning, relatively quiet place. I will say when I was staying in the homestay versus the hotel was up on a hill. The homestay was in the middle of the city where I was hearing loud music like coming from all directions until probably 2 in the morning. And then 4 out of 4, the most relaxing rural place was probably Goa. Goa is known as a wedding destination, lots of beaches. That's where my friend got married. And I did do one homestay there as well. And it was this young retired couple from Mumbai that decided, "Oh, we want a quieter life, less pollution." So, of course, when it comes to pollution, when we're going in order, the least polluted, it's correlated, right, with the amount of city likeness. So the least polluted was Goa, right on the water, and just very tranquil streets and nice home. It does seem like because of the quality of life in Goa and Udaipur, that people who are wealthier probably have their homes there because it's just a nice refuge that gets to be in India, where Udaipur is more of your mountain scene, Goa is more of your beach scene, and then Jaipur is very inland, and Mumbai almost has like your Miami coastal vibe. Okay, let's go there. Let me tell you, based on my experience, which place is like which. I have not pre-planned this. So Mumbai is a little like Miami vibes when it comes to like Miami Beach, being on the water, some materialism that's really present in the culture. And then Goa is maybe even a little like San Diego, but like less going on than San Diego, where you're right on the beach, you just have your nice home, you look out at the water, and that's your life. And maybe you have a remote business, or you're retired because you did well in Mumbai, and then you're just chilling. And then Udaipur is almost like Denver, Colorado, where, yeah, I think that's pretty accurate, where you have your mountains, you have some beautiful natural scenery, but there's still stuff going on. But then it's probably more tourism forward than Denver specifically is. And then Jaipur is the capital. So I wouldn't say it's like Sacramento. I mean, is it like Sacramento? Maybe like a cross between Los Angeles and Sacramento, because people typically come here for business. Although on the plane from Udaipur to Jaipur, I did connect with a businessman who has his family and everything in Jaipur, but travels to Udaipur for work. So whatever. Like I don't know how that works out, but different industries, right? Yeah, when I think of Jaipur, where I am currently, it's not as happening as Los Angeles, but I can see some commonalities in terms of like there are a lot of people. Oh, can you tell that I'm from California? So lots of California inspired places that I'm referring to in India. And other things that have helped me as a solo Western female traveler in India have been booking tours, having a driver, having a guide. And usually on trips, I would book tours and there would be other people there and I would make friends with other tourists and other travelers. But here, it was described to me that since COVID, there really have not been a lot of international travelers. It's been more domestic travel. So people from other parts of India traveling around. The websites like Viator, Get Your Guide, all of these places where I would book my tours that are maybe a bit more popular in America and Europe, for example. Even if it is a group tour, it's probably just going to be me. There was one Get Your Guide tour that I booked where there was one person from France, but all the other group tours have been just me. So that's something that I've had to get used to, where it's a little less about making friends with other travelers. And I feel like I've made friends with my homestay hosts, my tour guides, even my drivers. And then when I was in Udaipur, I did get help with my henna from some women that worked at the restaurant because that's where I was eating all my meals. And oh yeah, when it comes to eating effectively, look at my video for the must-pack travel list because I haven't, knock on wood, gotten sick on this trip. And there's some precautions that I took and a couple things that I purchased to help make that happen. But I am typically eating in the hotel or restaurants that are highly rated where you can tell that foreigners have been there and they're not writing horror stories about what happened to their gastrointestinal tract after. And I did have street food one night, and while I didn't get really sick, I went to this place in Udaipur, the something circle. Yeah, if you look up circle street food, you'll find it. And I felt my stomach twisting and turning a little bit in the night for hours. So, but I didn't actually get sick from it in any which way, but my stomach was like, what did you do? Like, this is different. Yeah, that's the only time when I really felt that. And I will say, I think that's the only food that I actually had this whole trip. I also am not participating in the nightlife. Maybe there are great places to party and dance. And I mean, I did that at the wedding. It's been more about getting enough sleep, R&R, spa services, and time to write and make these videos and reflect on the experience. And I typically am not out at night. There have only been a couple of nights where I was out just because maybe the tour was an all-day tour and then it ended after dark. And then I was on my way home in the dark, right? So if you are a Western female looking to travel to India, know that you can do it. And it reminded me a lot of being in Thailand, actually. If you've ever been to Thailand, a lot of, obviously, it's a different language and different culture, but there were a lot of similarities in terms of the dirt roads and the fruit stands and the overall vibe. So it's not about not doing things, but it's about being smart when you do them and also using your gut. And when you're connecting with people and talking with them, there are some people that will kind of let you know, oh, this person, there's something a little off, or oh, this feels comfortable. And I am such a proponent of really dropping into my body and asking myself how I feel and removing myself from situations where it's like, ooh, that there's something about this that feels off. And I'm less curious about this versus the situations where it feels more stretchy, where it's not like, oh, my body's in fight or flight. This is a hard no. Just like with going into that random small room with that random guy who apparently is world renowned, like he's online, you can see him. So yeah, using your gut and also these best practices that I've shared throughout, like knowing the local 911 and having, oh, I didn't mention this, but have a phone plan that allows you to call because my phone had some catching up to do where the first few days in India, I it wasn't actually working without Wi-Fi, which is kind of problematic. And I think I traveled like that a decade plus ago and it was fine. But now you don't want to have to ask strangers for help all the time. I mean, I did in London and it was fine, made new friends. But when it comes to being in a place where people might try to sell you something, they might try to, you just don't know. It's nice to be able to be self-sufficient, especially when getting from your hotel to the airport and vice versa. Having that agency is really important. Let me know if you have any additional questions about India. Feel free to put them down below and I'll do my best to answer them. And I'm wishing you a wonderful, connected, vibrant, and fun trip to